Well, hey there, it's me, TikTok from SpyKids4, and I have something important to talk to you about today. Final Fantasy VII was enormous. We know this. The original game was a paradigm shift for the JRPG genre, at least here in the West. Outside the obvious exception of Pokemon, this style of turn-based combat, long story-driven games had never gone mainstream in the States, but with a combination of cutting-edge 3D graphics, cutscenes that were and are mind-blowing, and a gripping story and characters, Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation changed all of that. Gamers all over America finally experienced the genre, but I was not one of them. Anyways, as a content creator, I always want to say the correct thing and make a cogent argument in an effort to persuade people to agree with my opinions. As a human, I reserve the right to be wrong sometimes, and the contradiction in those two states of being should probably do me a concern, but sometimes I forget why I walked into a room and just lose that driving thought forever. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't. But what I'm really trying to say is, never have I ever been happier to be so wrong about a video game than I was with Final Fantasy VII Remake. A while back, I said this.
I have never played Final Fantasy VII, at least not the original, and I may get flack for saying this, but I didn't like the remake at all, outside of the battle system.
Well, I picked up the game again, this time the Intergrade version on PC, back when I was waiting for Starfield to come out. Yes, this video has been in the oven for a while now, and I am happy to announce that I was wrong. God, I was so fucking wrong. This game is amazing. I'm not sure how or why I missed that the first time. And not only that, but Rebirth is somehow even better in almost every single way. So I'm going to spend the next however many minutes trying to process that whole mindfuck, and I hope you'll come along for the ride. And to preempt the comments making fun of me for my past views, I'm just gonna randomly sprinkle in embarrassing stories to make fun of myself and take the wind out of all you fuckers' sails. Exhibit A. I lost the school spelling bee in the 4th grade, finishing second to April because I misspelled the word cobbler. I got flustered and forgot the second B. I am not salty, April. I am cool as a fucking cucumber thinking about it 24 years later, April. If you're out there, I saw the teacher mouthing the word jean to you. I know you thought it was like the jeans you wear on your legs, and that's totally not me just being bitter and conveniently misremembering things. I think it's important to say from the outset that I still have not played the original Final Fantasy VII, so that has definitely colored my experience. I'm not trying to compare it to the original, instead being brand new to the story. It's been wonderful getting to soak in all the sights and sounds. And that brings us to our first point. I know this is basically beating a dead horse at this point, but I haven't really talked about this game yet, so holy shit, these games are beautiful in so many different ways. I've learned something about myself over the past couple years making all of these introspective, analytical videos about my favorite games, and that is, I'm kind of a basic bitch when it comes to graphics. If I have a nostalgic connection to an old game, I can look past those old graphics, but otherwise, man, I just cannot force myself to become invested. And trust me, I have tried. For older games, the immersion is broken for me in a way that I just haven't been able to get around. I tried playing the original Halo recently, which I never did when I was younger. I started right with Halo 2. And I know this is a universally acclaimed game, but for me, the game just wasn't gaming. Same with Final Fantasy IX, though I do plan on returning back to it at some point. So yeah, since I switched to PC about 5 or so years ago, I just can't stand playing games with low poly counts or 30 FPS. I know this is a very privileged thing, but being conscious of that fact hasn't changed anything for me. You know, I grew up with games like this, and I enjoyed playing them back then, but I like how much the craft has improved, at least visually, over the years. And I'm bearing my soul like this because I think that it was one of the biggest reasons that I couldn't make it through the first time in Remake. Playing it on the PS4 at that low frame rate just became unbearable to me. It was like opening Pandora's box. Once I made the switch, I just couldn't unsee the jerky motion. But perhaps more damning was the god-awful textures. My first time through was at launch, and for those of you that may not remember, there was a weird bug that made the textures render at a low detail, as if they were far away, only they weren't. Much of the game was almost like being transported back to the PS2 era, with weird blocky rocks, debris, and absurdly low detail on damn near everything. And again, I've been there, done that. I can't find it now, but I distinctly remember taking a side quest from a child and thinking to myself that it looked like Square Enix just took an adult male character model and scaled it down to child size. Basically, around every turn was some sort of immersion-breaking graphical issue that made it impossible for me to get invested into the story. But the Remake Intergrade version on PC? Shit, it is a completely different story. Don't get me wrong, some of the texture issues are still there, though they can mostly be modded away. But overall, the game is just so much more beautiful and detailed when it's run on a higher-end machine. Go figure. Clearly, the PS4 was holding the game back to a ridiculous degree. The faces that were already beautifully rendered on the PS4 just opened up with so much more life on the PC, especially in the close-ups that the game loves to revel in. The world overall is gorgeous in a way that I just couldn't appreciate the first time around, and after playing Intergrade along with Final Fantasy XVI on the PS5, I was prepared to say that anyone with similar tastes should just wait until the PC port to play Rebirth. Yet, against my better judgment, I decided to buy it at release, and once again, I was proven wrong. And I am so happy about that. I don't know what deal with the devil Square Enix made to get this game to look as good and run as smoothly as it does, but wow. Comparing it side by side with 16, they both seem to have similar levels of detail. Yet Rebirth is able to run at an upscaled 4K at what feels like a rock-solid 60 frames per second in damn near every location. Like seriously, what the fuck? How? Remake and Rebirth have two very different ambiances, while ultimately having very similar core gameplay. Remake is all dark and foreboding, with the art style perfectly capturing the oppressive atmosphere of this dystopian, authoritarian society. There is brand new tech everywhere, yet all the previous models litter the streets and alleyways of the Undercity. Without any dialogue or exposition, it tells of a city that has had the life choked out of it, except for the wealthy few. It shows, quite literally, the dark underbelly of progress, and is a clear warning for our real world should wealth continue to pool. The one exception to this is in Sector 5, the place where Aerith has the most influence. Her garden is a great example of the light in the darkness concept that Yusuke Naoi spoke of when talking about the original's development. In contrast, the world of Rebirth is much more open and free in both artistic as well as in a literal sense. We trade the dank alleyways and shantytowns for wide-open spaces and breathtaking vistas. Everywhere there is natural beauty in many different forms, from the endless grasslands of the grasslands to the high cliffs of Cosmo Canyon or the dense forests of Gongaga. It's just teeming with life. Everything, down to the smallest details, have clearly been shown love. For example, the inconsequential animations that the characters you're controlling go through when they sit on benches. Cloud grabs his sword to make sure he doesn't slice himself a new crack. Red 13 jumps up and lays down like a dog on a couch, which he basically is. Kate Sith has to hop up because he's too small to sit on it normally, and Yuffie basically falls down onto it like the little chaotic goblin energy woman she is. Each of them has a unique sit animation that corresponds to their character, and it's just a nice little bit of flavor. Hiroyuki Yamaji, who had the job of battle animation director, personally animated some of Red 13's movements. And I haven't seen him say it, but he must have had the time of his fucking life. He was given a job to animate this dog character and must have said, why would he run himself when he could hop up on his own chocobo and ride like a human? Actually, what he really said in this documentary about the game's creation was,
手綱を握らせるというところはマストとして、そこからいくつかポーズのバリエーションを作って野村さんに見ていただいて、これだっていうので選んでもらったのがあの姿勢です。選ばれると思ってなかったですよね。いやー、どうですかね。
Regardless, it's absolutely silly and wonderful, and I love it. Even the locations, either under Shinra's control or at least influence, are depicted as beautiful and alluring in Rebirth. The Golden Saucer in particular is absolutely magical. Sure, it's kind of horrifying that such a monument to excess could exist right next to two towns that are hanging on by the barest of threads, yet the pretty lights and sounds do a damn good job of distracting from all that, exactly as they were designed to do. There are signs of Shinra's influence all over the open world as well, showing both how far the influence has spread and how even the areas that seem stable and healthy are actually teetering on a knife point. Even in the fiend-infested jungles of Gongaga, where the company ostensibly doesn't exist, there are training facilities hidden all around. In a way, Rebirth exemplifies the opposite shadows in light idea that Nioi said inspired the creation of Final Fantasy VIII. And that got me thinking about the... So one of my big gripes about the story in my first playthrough of Remake was its inconsistency. It had a pretty dark tone. Guy helps freedom fighters Cell to disrupt a tyrannical corporation, but instead they get blamed for a massacre and some of their friends die. Not exactly light material. Yet there are some points that veer too far away from this tone, I felt. I wasn't a fan of the camp and didn't appreciate how it distracted from the main story. My left front tooth is fake, this one, because in the 6th grade, when all the cool kids hung out at the skating rink, my friend and I thought it would be a good idea to push each other down at high speeds, and he caught up to me on the turn. Literal smash cut to my mouth having an abrupt meet cute with the polished hardwood floor. Lost a piece of tooth and the nerve was exposed. I had to get a root canal and a titanium rod cemented to hold the crown.
I was even voted bravest buddy back in the day.
Well, I was wrong about that too. In basically all of the side quests, the camp seemed like almost a defense mechanism, papering over deeper, uglier truths about the world. Looking at it through new eyes, I can see what the writers were going for and appreciate it much more. Though I still wish someone would have commented on how weird it is that Barrett walks around with a fucking Gatling gun on his arm. I think it's obvious to even the most dense gamer that the story of 7 is about the difficulties of living under and fighting against a tyrannical government that treats both the planet and its least fortunate citizens like trash. Or rather, they just ignore them both altogether, despite them being the source of their power. In a way, it's about the ever-marching progress of a capitalist society, using up the resources, both natural and human, with no thought for the future. Something I don't think anyone can relate to. The message is depressingly even more poignant almost 30 years later. Remake takes great pains to show exactly why Avalanche is so against Shinra and their operations. The evidence is all around, as the people of Midgard living under the plates do so in absolute squalor. It's hard to imagine that any of them are able to eat anything even approximating fresh produce or drink clean water living in such a place. It's why Barrett's adoptive daughter, Marlene, is such a tragic character. We see the world that she's doomed to inherit, and so we, just like Barrett, are motivated to change it for the better. Cloud is the audience insert for this. He enters the story just as we do, with no real motivation to stop Shinra. He's just here for the money, just like we're just here for the pretty sights and battles. But over time, both he and we are shown all of these things, learn more about each of the characters' past, watch friends die to the injustice of the corporate overlords, and awaken to its truth. Shinra is a blight that must be stopped at all costs. Rebirth, on the other hand, has a very different tone. An oversimplified synopsis of the plot would be something like, Cloud and company run around the world chasing after a ghost to stop him from obtaining MacGuffin to satisfy an alien goddess, while meeting such characters as Buff Dude with a Giant Bulge, Bad Southern Accent Pilot, Titty McReddress, Overacted Mob Boss, Violator from Spawn,
No, duh.
Old Man BB-8, and more, only to find out that there was this ancient race that hated another ancient race, so they put them in timeout and hid the MacGuffin in a place that they unironically call the Promised Land. So the team ends up having to fight Italian Donald Trump in an amusement park to get the key to Narnia, and on and on and on. And while that definitely was a vast oversimplification and misses a lot of context, character stories, and basically everything that makes a story, it isn't wrong, because ultimately, Rebirth is a very silly game. And I think the devs knew that and heavily leaned into it, which I absolutely love. Yet, if I had to describe the story of Rebirth in a single word, it would be recontextualization. Almost every single plot point and character detail is cast in a new light, and that is a fantastic way to make the story of this game feel separate from Remake, because otherwise it would have just felt like playing a prolonged DLC. There's no way I could or would want to list every single example of this throughout the game, plus I'm not really spoiling much in this video anyways, so I'll just list some of my favorites. Barret, Tifa, and Red 13 all get some pretty great glow-ups in this game. Each of their motivations for fighting Shinra are all recontextualized and deepened, causing us to want to give them all a big hug even more. Barret, the loud-mouthed avalanche soldier with a heart of gold, is revealed to be hated in his hometown, as it's revealed that he once advocated for a Shinra Mako plant. Of course, the whole thing ended in tragedy, leading to the death of his friend, the father of Marlene. So we actually see the true reason he's dedicated to fighting Shinra. Despite his constant talk of justice and hearing the planet's call, it's really this sense of guilt and duty to his fallen friend. And yes, I know this was alluded to in the previous game, but still. Also, just like I wanted in the first game, someone finally calls him out for walking around with a giant gun on his arm.
That's one frightening looking appendage you got there. But hey, at least you still seem to have your health.
Yeah.
We learned that Tifa's father died to Sephiroth at the Nibelheim plant, and that she nearly followed him, that he was responsible for the burning of her hometown in a sudden about-face in the One-Winged Angel's character. Again, I did not play the original Final Fantasy VII, so I did not know these things. I know there was some imagery alluding to this in the first game, but it was never actually expanded upon. We learn that she was with Cloud around this time, and remembers things about the burning that he does not. It's both why she is just as hell-bent on seeing Shinra and Sephiroth stopped, as well as why she's been so delicate with Cloud throughout the story. And finally, we learn that Red 13 is a dog, apparently? I'm joking, of course. I know it's more complicated than that, but I kind of felt like this game was trying to gaslight me through my entire playthrough, having all of the NPCs refer to him as a dog when he clearly has more feline features. He's basically a super serious puppy cat. Now, there is an actual recontextualization of his character in Cosmo Canyon, but I'll leave that for you to discover because it's equal parts baffling and delightful. Not only that, but the Shinra soldiers are humanized more in this game. In Remake, everyone outside the Turks were little more than cannon fodder and had very little characterization. In contrast, there is a whole section of the main story in Rebirth where Cloud leads and fights alongside a squad of common Shinra troops. And we get to see that while their loyalties are misplaced, they're not fundamentally evil people, as they still show compassion and warmth to Cloud, even once it becomes obvious that he isn't who they thought he was. Also, Roche makes a comeback in this game, and we find out that he isn't just a Shinra soldier stooge with an overinflated ego. In fact, he's a Shinra soldier stooge with an overinflated ego that also has a sense of honor, and treats his opponents with true respect. Overall, while the plot of Rebirth isn't much to write home about, the themes and character stories are really phenomenal. The side characters are absolutely over the top, and it somehow leans so hard into the camp that it circles back around into just being flat out good. In particular, the entire sequence from the Golden Saucer to Corel Prison in the Dust Bowl are just delightful.
But which one of you is it? Is it you, maybe you, or is it the pooch? I'm just messing with you. That there is our man.
I don't think we've met.
Of course we haven't met. You got brain damage? I'm not the type of player folks tend to forget.
Just look at it.
No,
Dio and Gus, the Mafia boss, are easily my favorites because of just how extra they are.
Competition's good for the soul. Our culprit awaits below, my scrappy friends. In the name of justice, go forth!
Speaking of Dio and the Golden Saucer, let's talk about... Can we drop the pretense at this point? I mean, yes, Remake had some decent minigames, and there were a few great side quests as well. However, when I was living in my first apartment, I got blackout drunk with a friend playing Halo 3, and now I don't drink very much. I'm a small dude, so it doesn't take a whole lot. The next morning, I woke up and went into the kitchen to make some cereal, and I stepped on the rug and felt something wet. I called my friend who explained what had happened, and to fully appreciate the story that I'm about to relate, I think you'll need to see a layout of the apartment. You see, apparently I got up at one point saying I needed to pee. I know. But instead of going to the bathroom, which was the second turn to the left in the hallway, I went down the first. And instead of pointing at the toilet, I pointed at the oven, which just so happened to be in the same approximate place. Luckily, I didn't try to open the oven. Next thing my friend hears is a splashing noise. He walked in to see what had happened and immediately noped out of the apartment. So I really don't drink much anymore. Rebirth outdoes Remake in this category in nearly every single way. So I want to really focus on it in this section. Rebirth is like a mini-game simulator. The sheer number alone would be impressive, yet the depth to some of them is just absolutely mind-blowing. There is damn near a full Mario Kart-style racing game contained within this story-driven action RPG, complete with different racers, outfits, color customization, abilities, varied racetracks, and more. Plus, there's a whole side quest line that spans the entire game and culminates in a special 3-part race with interesting characters and surprisingly emotional story. Like, holy shit, Square Enix. As the great poet Taylor Swift once said, you need to calm down. Depending on how you count them, there's somewhere between 20 and 30 unique minigames throughout Rebirth. That is absolutely insane. Now, to be fair, not all of them are created equal. There are some that are much better than others, but there aren't any that I would really call bad. My absolute favorite, to nobody's surprise, is Queen's Blood, the card game. This harkens back to my absolute favorite series minigame, Triple Triad from Final Fantasy VIII. And to be honest, I'd say that Queen's Blood has it beat in all but a couple areas. First of all, like the rest of the game, it's just flat out beautiful. Its best quality, like many of the other best minigames in Rebirth, is that it could actually just be its own game. The card strategy can get very deep, and there are so many card options that you can get really specific and plan out long chains of buffs, debuffs, and/or replacements to get ridiculous scores. The first time I dropped a 100 bomb on the enemy was one of the most satisfying things in this entire game. Personally, I tended to stick with the same general strategy throughout, after developing it over the first several chapters. My deck has one goal: buff the ever-living shit out of every single one of my cards. After working out the kinks and fiddling with my deck, I won almost every single game on the first try. I'd like to try out a new strategy on my next playthrough, as I know things can get really creative by using cards that are buffed when enemy cards are destroyed and the like. But my strategy works so well that I honestly never wanted to change it in this playthrough. But beyond the main Queen's Blood game, there's also challenges in Costa del Sol where you're put in the middle of a game in a specific situation, and there's usually a single solution. There's some really neat and, towards the end, really challenging puzzles here. And beyond even that, there's an actual story arc tied to Queen's Blood. The damn game has lore. Slowly, as Cloud challenges more and more players through the game, a secret story is revealed, and it all culminates at the end with, well, I'll leave that for you to find. There's another game spanning side quests that involve multiple different minigames and a story arc that connects back to the main plot at times even. These are the proto-relic quests that can be found in each region throughout the game. My favorites of these include the return of Fort Condor, which is like a Command and Conquer-esque strategy game, and Guts and Gambit, though I'm not sure if the latter is actually good or if it's just my nostalgia for the Gambit system from Final Fantasy XII. Either way, I love it. The Proto-Relic quests do contain some stinkers. Probably the worst offender isn't really even a minigame, but a short side quest where the team has to herd the hooded zombie soldiers, and they walk so slow. I'm not evil enough to make you sit through this whole thing, but there are 2 sections that make you follow them for upwards of 3 minutes. Not a long time in the grand scheme, I know, but the glacial pace makes it feel like an eternity. Like all of the other side quests and minigames are at worst a nice distraction, but this was just flat out awful. One of the only things I didn't like in the game, in fact. And don't cite lore at me about their movement speed because I've seen them fucking run. The last one I want to talk about is the piano minigame. It is right up there neck and neck with Queen's Blood and the Chocobo races for me. As a millennial gamer, I was way into Guitar Hero when I was young, and this scratches that same itch for me. Only, ignoring the short song count, it is far deeper than those games actually. The skill ceiling is in the stratosphere here, allowing the player to switch between different keys and their minor variants, add major 7 and major 9 chords, have two-handed progressions, etc. It's almost literally a piano, just in a really weird form. And the specific arrangements of these songs for piano, added on top of the different versions as you play better and get longer note streaks, are just wonderful. I spent quite a bit of time playing this, trying to get stars on every single song, but I was only really successful in annoying my wife by repeating them over and over again. Anyway, the side quests in Rebirth are also much better than those found in Remake. They have about the same tone as those from the previous game, mostly silly, which makes them a perfect fit for this different vibe. One of my favorites was this silly little quest in Under Junon that Cloud and Tifa embark on to help some kids. There's this spot in the town that turns anyone who steps inside into a toad. The kids like to play there, yet monsters have made it a home too, so the two of you have to go in full command toad and take them out. The best part is that the toad versions of you retain characteristics of their characters. Like Cloud basically carries a tiny version of the Buster Sword, and once the fiends are taken out, that's basically it. No other quest in the game uses that mechanic. Though, to be fair, it is identical to the toad status effect found in battle. But it's such a cool little detail. It's a small quest, self-contained, and executed to perfection. Plus, any quest that pairs me with Tifa and her abs is a good one in my book. I could honestly go on and on about the side content in this game because there's just so much. But I'm gonna stop here because there's a lot more to talk about. For instance, Final Fantasy has always had fantastic music, and I appreciated it in my first playthrough, but I had to bring it up for one specific reason. When I was really young, I was the type of kid that would lick things, like random things, out in public, for no reason. I vividly remember licking the entire wheelchair railing at a macaroni grill, sliding down it like my tongue was a fucking tech deck and I was grinding. I also liked to down half and halves like nobody's business. I was a weird fucking kid. But the detail that I noticed was in the continuity of motifs when exploring the 6 open-world regions. Each one has their own particular theme that fits the biome of the area, and each one is fantastically arranged. But the really cool part happens when the party gets into battle out in the wilds. Of course, the music shifts to a new battle track with a quicker tempo and heavier drums, etc. But one thing I noticed embarrassingly late in my playthrough is that these battle tunes are built around the same motif as the exploration themes. They have the same melodies. So this is really cool and really shows the thought that was put into the compositions. It eases the transition into battle, helping everything to feel even more seamless and fluid. And this, in turn, adds to the immersion. It's not like the days of early Final Fantasy where the exploration and battle sequences felt like different areas. Instead, it feels like it's supposed to. You're exploring an area and boom, now you're in a battle in the same area with the same vibe, just heightened. So when I first played Remake, while I liked the idea of the combat, I don't think I quite got it. Like, I think I was looking for more depth, but I wasn't finding it at first. I wasn't a fan of the materia system and much preferred the junction system of 8. And while that is still my favorite build system, I've come to appreciate materia much more. And I think a big factor of that is that I stopped my first playthrough too early as I lost interest. I know. From the ages of about 10 to 14, I was really into Atlantis, and I read all these crackpot books about sacred sites and hidden clues left thousands of years ago by some super advanced civilization. And then later on as a teen, I got really into the loose change documentary and 9/11 trutherism. I still cringe thinking about that shit to this day, even more than the weird tongue fixation thing. So yeah, I was wrong on that count for numerous reasons. Overall, the combat of Remake and Rebirth are, I think, the best in the series. Notice I say overall, as I think there are small aspects that other entries do better. For instance, the materia versus junction systems, as mentioned. But yes, overall, Remake set the bar and Rebirth raised it. I think the best part about the system is the skill ceiling. I'm under no illusion that I've mastered the combat systems, yet I did notice some significant improvements in my gameplay throughout each game. Even with that, though, it always felt like I could have done something more, been more creative with abilities, get better with block timing, play with different materia combos to better strategize, etc. It's because of this versatility that it feels much better than, say, Final Fantasy XVI, which was a combat system that I praised and still do enjoy. 16 was more action-centric, but it also didn't really have a large sandbox to play in, so to speak. Options were limited, and so creativity and skill in combat came down to precise timing rather than strategy. In Remake and Rebirth, having the option to map abilities to button combos or just slow down time to accomplish the same tasks feels great. In general, the more abilities and freedom given the player, the less it feels like button mashing. I don't know, maybe that's obvious, but it's something that I kept coming back to in my playthrough. Contrast this with 15's battle system, which did have some similar features, but the attacks were limited to basically just smashing square over and over and over again. Anyways, you might have expected this, but Rebirth adds onto it to make things even better. First of all, it's recreating the middle portion of the OG Final Fantasy VII, which in practical terms means that equipment with more and better organized materia slots become available, more materia options in general as well. There are even more weapons for each player, and thus more unique abilities. Aerith, though I despise her playstyle overall, has some really cool abilities in Radiant Ward and Lustrous Shield, which can be stacked to make her a tanking machine. Ask me how long it took me to realize I should do that when I was fighting the 2 bombs in the arena with her. Whew, that was rough. But definitely the best additions to the combat in Rebirth are the cooperation mechanics. In the last game, interaction between the characters was pretty limited, as only ability synergies and certain materia combos allowed for anything meaningful. Not so with Rebirth, as the entire system has been reworked a bit to revolve around those types of interactions. There are multiple synergy skills accessed while guarding that specifically link the character the player is controlling with one of the others in the party, and they both perform it together. These can range from calling an ally to basically become a meat shield, or engulfing Cloud's sword and magic and unleashing a devastating attack. Not only do these not cost ATB to use, they actually grant it. Seems like this is an incentive to use them more. Then, once enough synergy has been built up between 2 of the characters, their synergy abilities become available. These also don't cost ATB, and are even more powerful. Most all of them unleash some sort of combined attack on the enemy, while also providing some sort of passive benefit, like splitting ATB into 3 smaller slices, increasing stagger time, temporarily making mana infinite, etc. They are all incredibly useful and really add to the variety of combat. But what would the battle system be without good enemies? Well, thankfully we don't have to find out for either of these games. The bosses in Remake and Rebirth are especially cool, with some of my favorites in the latter, including Emo Vampire Guy. Yes, I know his name is Vincent, but he looks like he's about to blast Panic at the Disco and flip his hair just to cover one eye, so to me, he's Emo Vampire Guy. Let's go! But the pièce de résistance, in my opinion, are the Marlborough and Toneberry fights. These are secret fights that you only unlock after completing certain objectives within their regions. There are more, one for each region in fact, but these are my favorites. If you're one of the 10 people that watched my video on Final Fantasy XVI, one of my biggest gripes with that game was how they bastardized the Marlborough. Because of their choices with the combat system, i.e. disposing of status effects and elemental weaknesses overall, it made what should have been a terrifying enemy into an absolute joke, honestly. Not so in Rebirth. This guy is mean, and even when I was overleveled, he could still damn near wipe my whole team, and I'd be left with Aerith hitting him with pot shots across the arena to avoid his petrification or toad breath. The Tonberry King as well was an interesting fight. While I'm not a huge fan of insta-death moves, they were always a staple of fighting Tonberries, so it fits here. Plus, the player has to juggle both the battle along with picking up his crown, which was pretty stressful. By the way, can we talk about the open world combat assignments? Rhetorical question, this is my channel, so that's what we're gonna do. These are some interesting and challenging fights with reskinned, stronger enemies, and more abilities, and blah 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 blah. All that's cool, and I have no issue with it. My thing is more from a, I don't know, conservation standpoint? Dumb, I know, but it's just kind of strange that the apparent goal of these assignments is to gather more data on these wondrous endangered beasts. Yet every last one of them involves killing said wondrous endangered beasts. Just a little bit of dissonance here that I thought was kind of strange. Finally, this isn't really part of the combat, but the item transmuter was a cool addition. Since it's an open world game, Rebirth has the obligatory crafting materials and recipes which are found in the transmuter. Cloud slowly gains more recipes.
That's it! I've come up with a new recipe.
Both by using the transmuter to craft items, so crafting items to craft more items, but also by completing certain open world assignments, the life springs. One thing that makes the crafting system here less annoying than others in the genre is the fact that there are certain enhanced items that are exclusively available through the system. Not ones that were already available, but instead new, more powerful versions. For example, the mist potions offer the same healing as their normal counterparts, but affect the entire party at once. Pretty neat. Overall, though, the combat was already the best in the series with Remake, and Rebirth just made it even better. And now I am really hyped for the final entry in the series, to see all of the ultimate weapons and all the new mechanics they'll hopefully throw our way. And that finally leads us to our... There's honestly so much more I could say about these games, but my last few videos were far too long, so I'm trying to keep this one relatively brief. It's no secret that I've made mistakes in videos past, like when I thought Tim Curry had died, or when I dared suggest that Ida was the older sister. And after this video, well, there's way fewer secrets about myself personally. Just remember, those were the stories I was willing to tell you. I decided to hold back the one about pooping my pants as an adult. But I guess now you know. I don't think the embarrassment for any of those other mistakes was quite so palpable as when I finally replayed Remake, or when I expected Rebirth to be a flop. Yet, I genuinely could not be happier to realize how wrong I was, because it means that there were these two wonderful games full of rich characters, beautiful visuals, and fucking kick-ass music that I had the pleasure of experiencing for the first time. And that's why I've made this video. I'll probably make mistakes going forward. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm corrected down in these very comments. But I want you to know that they come from a place of sincerity. And if I find something that I was horribly wrong about, as I was in the case of these games, I'll own up to it. Ultimately, this channel is a vehicle for sharing my thoughts and opinions with each of you, and I've been so lucky that for some reason y'all are interested in listening. I am so humbled by your support and the love that you've shown. I'm always happy to engage with comments, even if they disagree with me, as long as they aren't dicks about it. In summation, if there's one takeaway from this video, it's that I am always right. Also, play Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. Okay, so 2 takeaways. I'm always right, cool, and was definitely not a weird kid, and play the damn games. Huge thank you to Anonym, Ali, and Marissa for becoming my latest patrons. You guys rock. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.